It's the question that opens almost every residency interview. So tell me a bit about yourself. And yet, it's the one that seems to rattle even the most experienced applicants. But here's the thing, this question is not just a formality, and it's not some kind of casual icebreaker. It's an opportunity to take some real control over how the interview unfolds. When done well, your self-introduction, it becomes a kind of roadmap. It sets the tone. It gives the interviewer a clear picture of who you are. And maybe most importantly, it invites the kind of follow-up questions that you really want to answer. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how a pediatrics applicant can approach this question in a residency interview. My goal for the video is that you'll walk away with some actionable strategies and a real life example well suited for the high pressure and oftentimes super quick interviews for residency programs in pediatrics. So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll speak briefly about mindset and structure. After that, we'll take a look at a real life sample answer that uses my APMPF framework. And to wrap it up, we'll analyze the answer and give you some actionable takeaways. Quick spoiler, I'll also be letting you know how you can access my self-introduction worksheet, which is a great starting point in organizing your self-introduction. This is a resource that's totally free for viewers. More about that in just a bit. Let's start by taking a moment just to shift about how we think about this question. When an interviewer asks, "Tell me a bit about yourself," they're not asking for a full bio. They're asking for a first impression, a headline, an opening argument. And in this moment, I think it's useful to think a bit more like a lawyer than a physician, because a great answer to the "tell me about yourself" question mirrors a lawyer giving opening arguments to a jury just as a trial begins. In this moment, you put your evidence on the table, you save no surprises, and you begin planting seeds for the rest of the conversation. And that idea of planting seeds is so crucial to strong self-introductions. So let's spend a moment there. In residency interviews, of course, apart from this question, "Tell me a bit about yourself," you know that you'll be asked to explain your interest in the program and your interest in practicing medicine in the US. And the structure that we'll be looking at in this video, it makes space for you not to answer those questions completely, but most definitely to begin planting seeds for the ideas behind the why, just like a lawyer giving opening arguments to a jury as a trial begins. Your self introduction is your chance to begin guiding the conversation. What we must admit about your interview is we can't predict every question, but you can begin planting seeds in your self introduction, your research experience, clinical strengths, or interest in the US, so that when the follow up questions come, they go in a direction where you've already built some momentum. So now that we've taken some time to rethink this question, let's briefly address the framework that we'll be using. Each of the letters of the APMPF framework represents a section of a strong self-introduction. There are 5 parts: appreciation, present, motivation, past, and future. And this gives you a way to tell your story clearly without rambling and lets the interviewer see how your past connects to your future. Of course, if you'd like a more detailed explainer on this framework, check out my video, Better Self-Introductions. But for now, let's take a look at a full sample answer from a pediatrics applicant. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I've been looking forward to learning more about your program and how residents work together as a team. I'm originally from Portugal and a recent graduate of the University of Lisbon. Over the past year, I completed U.S. clinical electives in pediatrics at Boston Medical Center and Children's National. I worked with both inpatient and outpatient teams caring for children with a range of developmental, acute, and chronic conditions. I've often been described as steady and observant, especially in moments when families are anxious. I'm comfortable adjusting my communication style to match the family's needs and background. What really draws me to pediatrics is the long term partnership. I've always been interested in early development and preventative care, but what holds my attention are the everyday moments, helping a parent feel more confident or earning a child's trust during an exam. I value the chance to support families, not just in treating illness, but in building a foundation for health. In Lisbon, I volunteered at a public children's hospital with a mobile vaccination unit that served rural communities. It was in those settings that I learned how to build trust with families quickly and to stay flexible in unpredictable conditions. I also contributed to a research project on pediatric growth tracking and presented our findings at a European endocrinology conference, which gave me early experience in connecting data to practice. I'm looking for a residency that will help me grow both as a clinician and as a communicator. I'm interested in training in the United States because of the strong focus on teaching, feedback, and interprofessional collaboration. Your program stood out to me for its developmental pediatrics training and its work with multilingual families. Long term, I hope to combine outpatient care with community advocacy and help improve how health systems support children from diverse backgrounds. I would really be excited to join a program that values curiosity, equity, and teamwork. I'd love to know your thoughts, and if you plan on using the APMPF framework, let me know in the comments. But for now, I want to share with you some of my thoughts on what makes this introduction work so well, and some ideas on how you can apply the same strategies to your self introduction as you move forward towards your interview. The first thing that you'll notice is how this applicant quietly takes some soft control of the interview by planting seeds, specific, relevant details that invite follow up. And that's not just accidental, it's strategic and smart. A few of the seeds that I noticed were the candidate's experience in US clinical electives in pediatrics. The candidate also mentioned their communication strengths under pressure. They also mentioned an interest in preventative care and development, as well as a research project with real world implications. And another seed was long term goals that match the program's mission. Certainly, there are more seeds in this candidate's self introduction. Let me know in the comments if you can spot them. But from these five that we're working with, any one of them could grow into a follow up question that the applicant was anticipating. A few follow up questions that I would anticipate could be: can you tell me more about your experience at Children's National? What role did you play in the growth tracking research? What drew you to advocacy work? How do you approach building trust with anxious families? And by doing this, the applicant isn't just answering a question, giving their self introduction. They're shaping the interview, they're giving the interviewer a roadmap. And that helps both sides. It gives the interviewer more to work with, and it lets the applicant lead the conversation toward prepared, thoughtful answers. Now that we've spoken about a few of those seeds and how they could grow, let's take a look at what this candidate does well section by section. The present section gives immediate clinical context, not just where the person trained, but how they worked across inpatient and outpatient teams with complex patient populations in high pressure environments. And the description of how they adjust communication, that's a soft skill turned into a clinical strength. And the way that it's communicated is clear, credible, and grounded. The motivation section isn't a vague love of kids or a sentimental story. It's grounded in specific values: partnership, preventative care, building confidence. It shows that this applicant understands what pediatrics demands: consistency, patience, the ability to build trust. And the motivation section makes those values both visible and tangible. Then in the applicant's past section, we see a blend of volunteerism, adaptability, and early academic contribution. But it's not about listing. The past section offers a narrative from mobile clinics to presenting research. And that shows initiative, humility, and the ability to connect work across different settings. The future section, it does double duty. It shows knowledge of the program and personal alignment with its values. And it's specific: developmental training, multilingual populations, not some copy paste from the program's website. And the vision for future advocacy work, it ties everything together. So, what's the result? I would say a self introduction that's authentic, intentional, and compelling without being overly polished or just parroting information from the program's website. So, now that we've spoken about the self introduction example, let's talk about some best practices that you can use as you move forward in your own process. Here are 5 recommendations that I would give you. First, create bullet points, not full scripts. You're not trying to recite a monologue. Think about this: writing is linear and speaking is dynamic. You're trying to sound like a real person in the interview, someone who's clear, prepared, reflective, not a robot. By the way, my self introduction worksheet is a great starting point for exactly this kind of first step. You can request it in the link in the description. I'll be sure to send it out right away. And of course, if you'd like a more personalized approach on your self introduction or your residency interview preparation, count on my help. Let's find a time to speak one on one. My booking link is also in the description. Second, practice by speaking out loud. Even if you're practicing alone, there is so much benefit to speaking out loud. You don't have to record yourself, listen back, and self criticize, but you do have to give yourself a chance to get to the end of the answer every time. Let your brain hear your voice. That's how you train fluency under pressure. Third, prioritize progress over perfection. As you're practicing out loud, be open to being highly unsatisfied with those first few attempts. After all, it's much better to be unsatisfied while you're practicing than unsatisfied when you're interviewing. And that dissatisfaction is actually an opportunity. Set a marker at the moments that you think you could make a better point and keep going. Then come back to those markers later and think of what you could say better or how you could say it better. This is a natural process of evolution, and great self introductions go through this process. Fourth, identify the seeds you want to plant in each of those sections. These are the ideas you want to be asked more about. Choose details that invite curiosity, like a rotation, a research project, or a cross cultural experience. And fifth, don't memorize. Definitely don't memorize. And don't try to over polish either. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. And in the interview, connection. A few pauses or imperfections, they're completely okay if your structure is strong and your message is real. If you're a non native English speaker, there is no grammar worksheet or vocabulary list that will get you into a residency program, but intentional preparation really will help you out in the moment of the interview and on match day. If you're working on your self introduction, get started now by writing some ideas you can include in each of those 5 sections: appreciation, present, motivation, past, and future. Of course, a medical residency interview is much more than just introducing yourself. So, if there's a question that you're struggling with, if a question is keeping you up at night, let me know in the comments. I'd love to feature that question in my next video. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, share it with a colleague who's also preparing for a residency interview, and be sure to subscribe so that Omni Interview is part of your team. I publish new content regularly. Let's make sure that you're in the loop. And as you move forward in your preparation, especially if you're an IMG, remember, you don't need perfect English to leave a strong impression. You need structure, clarity, and self awareness that helps you identify your story. And your story is one that's absolutely worth sharing. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.